Welcome back to Horn Takes Live. I am Sean Redfern, and joining me tonight for the first time ever in From the Cheap Seats is Marc Pena of Occupy Left Field. Marc, how we doing tonight, man?
Doing fantastic, Sean. I appreciate you having me on, man. Looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Absolutely, man. It's almost football season. We've got a little over 2 weeks before the Texas Longhorns kick it off up in Columbus. We'll certainly talk about that here in a little bit. But before we do that, we got to get some housekeeping out of the way. You guys, if you're not following Marc already, I don't know how you're not following Marc already. Definitely go follow Marc Pena of Occupy Left Field. It's right there at the bottom of the screen. He is your guy for all your Texas baseball, not necessarily news, but like if you want like the inside, like let's go do this after baseball, or we're going to be out here at this time before baseball. If you want to come out to left field, he's certainly your guy. So him and Jeff, follow those guys on Twitter. But yeah, Marc's a good follow. You're active on Twitter, man. You put in work on Twitter.
Yeah, I try to not overdo it, but it's hard sometimes, man.
I don't
That
think you
damn app is
overdo it.
pretty addicting.
Yeah, I'm not saying you overdo it. I say like, man, Marc, it's you don't pay for it, so follow Marc. It's good value because it's free, and you'll
I
get a lot of good
appreciate that.
information.
Yeah,
And then, of course, I
absolutely.
can't forget our guys over at ChinookSeedery.com. Seeds are not just for baseball season, folks. You can choose seeds during football season. I highly recommend these seeds because they're the best seed ever. Big seeds, good flavors. They got all kinds of good flavors. And I told them and they actually came out with this big bucket thing now. You can pick 75 of those single packs, and they throw them in a Chinook Seedery bucket and ship it to you. And I told them if they get taco and enchilada seeds on top of that bucket, man, you can't stop Chinook Seedery. So I'm hoping they're in they're like researching and developing that right now because I think that would be fabulous. But check those guys out at ChinookSeedery.com. Use the promo code HornTakes. You get 10% off your order over there. All right, Marc. First time ever. This is crazy to me. This is almost as crazy as the thing I heard last year before the Super Bowl that never had a Texas Longhorn or an Alabama Crimson Tide alumni scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That is mind-blowing until last year. First time ever that's happened. But Texas has never been ranked number one preseason in the AP poll. And here they come in this last week, ranked number one in the AP poll. They're number one in the coaches poll. What are your thoughts on sort of the hype that this Texas team is getting? And we know they're missing a lot of pieces from last year's team, especially on that offense.
Yeah, it is crazy, Sean. I heard that stat as well about us never being preseason number one in the AP before, and that's kind of surprising. It's also exciting that it's unprecedented, and obviously we start the season with a splash up in Columbus. I was a little bit bummed to see that Ohio State didn't make number two
I
in the
know.
AP poll. Penn State kind of screwed up that 1-2 matchup that I think would have been the first time ever that had happened as well. But man, it's exciting times here in Austin. I will say that I personally feel like for being preseason number one, though, like I don't feel like Austin's going over the top about that, right? I think it speaks a lot to Sark and what he's building in Austin. I feel like it's kind of like an expectation now
Yeah.
that Texas is going to be in the top 10 and they're one of the top powers in college football. And, again, I don't see like the over the top anticipation for the season to start, but it's just everybody's kind of calm, cool, and collected and ready to see what the team's going to put on the field week one. I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah, we do get a 1-2 coaches poll matchup. I don't know how I would weigh that. I don't know if I feel like that's better than the AP poll 1 and 2, but I am a little bit surprised that Penn State snuck into 2. I'm gonna have to see it. I don't understand the Penn State hype. I mean, I think probably the only reason they're even in that type of conversation is because they're the only of those three teams that are bringing back a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And if you talk about Ohio State and you talk about Texas, they're both missing a lot of pieces off of those teams last year that played in the semifinals. I mean, almost at least in certain spots, unrecognizable teams from what we saw in the Cotton Bowl last year. So I think that's probably why Penn State got in, but still a little different to me. I wonder too if part of the what do we say? Part of the non-hype, we're not blowing it up, is the fact that we're going on the road to play defending national champions and a team that, man, they were really tough last year, and certainly they're losing some folks. They lost a lot of folks off of that team, but it's Ohio State, and they've recruited well. They've recruited as consistently as Alabama, as consistently as Georgia, probably over the last 6 to 8 years. So that roster will have a lot of really, really good players on it. It's going to be a tough out, and when you factor in, we've got a new quarterback, and I know he's played. I'm not saying he's brand new. It's not his first start ever. We all know that, but he is. This will be a step up for him from a competition and environment perspective. And then we got to replace 4 of our 5 offensive linemen, and that offensive line, it wasn't like a overly dominant offensive line last year, but it was a damn good offensive line. And so to lose that, I think when you take an offense on the road like that, it's going to be interesting. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Texas ranked number 1 in both polls for the first time ever in the AP, and that is crazy to me when you think about the history of Texas football. They've never been a preseason number 1 in the AP. I don't like preseason polls. I think they skew the season for the rest of the season, because what ends up happening is you go, hey, we think these are the top 25 best teams. And then a lot of those teams have to play each other. And so if they play close games with the other ones, they don't drop as far as they would have. You know what I mean? It's just I don't think we should start ranking teams until conference play. When you've already got to see them play 3 or 4 games, then you can go, okay, we thought they would be this, and they actually do look like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me ask you this, Sean. Do you personally feel like we're deserving of the preseason number 1 ranking, question. Or are you a little bit surprised?
I'm a little bit surprised, but I also realize that we're in a new era of college football. I was having almost this exact same conversation with CJ Vogel after the season last year, and we were talking about, headed into 2025, what we thought the better position groups were going to be and what we thought the preseason, top 10 would look like and stuff like that. And he said, I think Texas has got to be the favorite. And I was kind of like, what? Like, you think Texas is we're losing, what are we losing? 8 starters off the offense? Come on. We're the favorite. But he made a good point. He said, Sean, every single team that's up there is losing. And we're in an era now of the NIL and the transfer portal where you don't have like a Nick Saban that's stacking 5 stars 1, 2, 3 deep like he was before. So when these guys transfer out, it kills depth. And I think depth was the reason that those Alabama teams were so good. They could afford to take that injury hit, and they still had another kid that could come in and step up and was probably just as good, if not better, than the guy that was in front of him. So you don't have that anymore. So you lose key pieces, and it can really change the whole trajectory of a season, I feel like. I mean, I feel like I was looking at the offensive line depth chart, and I feel like with Kajo's injury being out for the season, if we lose another guy off that offensive line, it's going to be a big hit to that offensive line, more than likely. I mean, stranger things have happened, but just looking at it on paper and you look at the experience and things like that, it's just not there. They just don't have it. And they're probably all, I know they're all fine players, like fine athletes, but there's a lot more to being a good offensive lineman and a lot of other positions as well than just being physically gifted, right? There's a mental side of it, and there's a, preparedness side of it. So yeah, I think back to your question, I kind of went a long way to get back to your question, but but I think, I think they're just as deserving as anybody else. It wouldn't have surprised me to see Ohio State up there. It wouldn't have surprised me to see even in Alabama, because I think they got a really loaded roster. It wouldn't have surprised me to see, obviously, Texas. Georgia is another team that I think has a really loaded roster. It wouldn't have surprised me to see them at ranked number 1. So yeah, I don't think there's I don't think we'll be going into many college football seasons in the future where there's like a clear cut, this is your
Yeah.
team. And we used to see that all the time.
Yep. I definitely agree with that, and I think that's been one of the weird things for me, right? Is I personally don't feel strongly that we're the number one team in the country. I think we're going to need to prove it,
Yeah.
right? And it's just one of those weird things where you're happy that you're in that position, and it's a great position to be in. But we'll see how it shakes out after the first couple of weeks, and once we start to see some live competition on the field.
Yeah. And I think, you talk about jumping in head first. They're jumping in head
Yeah,
first, going up to Columbus and playing the defending national champions. Let's talk about the team a little bit. So we already talked about the offensive line. They're replacing 4 or 5 starters. We're replacing the quarterback. We're replacing an All-American tight end. We're replacing a bunch of wide receivers that got drafted.
yeah,
The running back room going into spring, to me, was a really big question mark. Not that there wasn't talent in it, but a lot of it was injured, and we didn't know how they
yeah.
would respond to, their surgeries and treatments and where they would be coming into fall camp. I think for me, I feel a lot better now about the running back room. Just seeing
Mhm.
reports out of camp that all those guys look pretty good, and they're not limited in any way. And in fact, Christian Clark, all the buzz about him is you wouldn't even know he tore his Achilles tendon last year. He's bounced back
Yeah.
that well from his surgery and recovery and all that stuff. So that's outstanding news. So it's a loaded backfield, but I still question that offensive line. And when I think about the problems this team had last year offensively, it was the ability to run the ball when they absolutely needed
Yeah.
to. You look at both the Georgia games and that Ohio State game, they could not really get much going running the football. And then you look at red zone. This team was terrible. They were 111th out of 131 teams or something like that in the red zone last year. So not
Yeah.
good at all. A lot of being good in the red zones, being able to get push and get people off the ball and just have people fall forward for touchdowns. And we just could not do it. And I think that's why you saw a toss sweep on 1st and goal in the Cotton Bowl, down 7, instead of just let's go. Uh, so So to me, those are concerns, and I think a lot of Texas fans just are completely overlooking that. What are your thoughts on all that?
I'm definitely not overlooking the offensive line group. I think that really is a concern, right? And something that's going to have to be proven as we get the season going. I think you look at the positives and the negatives about starting the season against such a tough opponent like Ohio State on the road, but you look past that game, right? And if you can somehow get out of Columbus with a win, I
Yeah.
mean, you literally have almost an NFL preseason before you play another good team,
Hmm.
right? We come home and play 3 really bad teams, and then we have a bye week before Florida,
Yeah.
right? So the schedule really works out well when you're talking about bringing along a young offensive line and young players at other positions, right?
Yeah.
Ohio State is replacing just as much. So it's going to
Yeah.
be 2 talented teams trying to fill a lot of gaps. And if Texas, again, if they can somehow get out of Columbus with a win, man, they have a full month of live action to really figure it out and to get the ball rolling before SEC play. So I do think that's going to be the biggest area of concern for me. And then naturally that trickles to everything else on the offense, like you were mentioning, right? I've heard it brought up 15 times, right? Arch Manning and his health, right? We don't have a true proven quarterback behind him. And that scares the hell out of me because it's been several years since we've had a quarterback that made it through the entire season
Yeah.
without missing a couple of starts, right? Quinn was not able to do that at his time at Texas. And even before that, we had guys that would get banged up all the time and would miss 3 to 4 games. And I think if you look at Texas's offense, and if you're going to tell me that at any stretch during SEC play we're going to be without Arch Manning for 2 or 3 games, I would say this team's going to be in a lot of trouble. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the offensive line protecting Arch and making sure that he's able to make it clean through the season.
Yeah, I agree 100. I mean, you always want to protect your number one for sure. I think I'm really high on Trey Owens. I have been since he got to Austin. I think, and I'll say this, it may be crazy. I'm going to say it anyway. I think that the backup quarterback position is in better shape now than it's ever been under Sark, besides last season when Arch Manning was the backup. I think if you look at the seasons before that, we really didn't have anybody in the fold that you could really count on to maybe go win games. And I feel like Trey Owens was just a guy that was really overlooked in the recruiting process. He started to get some kudos late and got that 4th star, but I always looked at his film and thought, man, this dude can sling it. And he did it at a pretty high level in Houston or Cy-Fair area, which is some good football down there. So yeah, I mean, I think, and he's been in the system for a couple years, almost kind of, I mean, without it being Arch, kind of the same type of situation where he's been able to come in and learn and practice and go through all these things without ever having to worry about being the guy. And I think for a quarterback that doesn't always have to be, doesn't necessarily, but it can be like a really good factor in their growth and development and all that stuff. So if Arch went down, I'd certainly be like, shit. And the emotional side of me would be like, damn, we are screwed. But I don't know that I 100% believe that. Like the brain part of me sometimes goes, wait a second, I think Trey Owens is pretty good. Hopefully we don't have to find out. That's the prayer, right?
And Sean, how far ahead of Matthew Caldwell do you think Owens is? Do you think there's any race for that backup spot at this
Man,
point, or do you
I've
think
heard that.
it's Owens' job?
I've heard that they've both kind of taken, they've kind of split those second team reps. And I don't know. I don't think anybody, well, some of those guys know because they have sources within the program and stuff like that. But if you're just looking at, the 30 minutes of media availability those guys get, probably nobody knows exactly what that looks like. I would think he is, just simply because he's been in the system for a while. But who knows? I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about Caldwell, so it would not surprise me to see him in that number 2 spot, when an official depth chart does come out. And if that's the case, I think that's good news. I mean, I think, to me, that's strengthens that quarterback room. It doesn't mean Trey Owens just didn't have a good fall. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see how all those things pan out. KJ Lacey's a guy, that freshman quarterback out of Alabama. He's a guy that's made some plays in the fall camp. I certainly don't think you go build I don't think you can build an offense and win a lot of SEC games with a guy that young, but I don't know. You just never really know until they strap it up and go out on the field. But I think the defense for this team is going to really have to, and I think they're going to carry this team through that first. You talked about like that first month, that first 5 weeks, where they're trying to figure out who they've got and playing guys in different positions. Because there's a lot of, even on that defense, obviously the offense, there's a lot of people they can plug and play and figure out what works. But there's some spots on the defense as well where I don't think there's like a clear, this is the guy necessarily. So I think the coaches will want to play around with that early in the season and figure that out. But I think the front 7 of this defense is just so staggeringly good and will be so staggeringly good that they're going to have time to do that. And I think if we make it to that week 5 bye week and we're undefeated, that's going to be why. I think the defense is going to have just really taken people off guard, like in a way that we haven't seen a Texas defense do maybe ever, but definitely in a really long time. I mean, I think they're that good talent-wise.
I agree with you. Just some absolute monsters on the defensive side of the ball, right? And that's exactly what you need, based on everything that we've talked about so far, with, filling some new pieces on the offense and, having high hopes for Arch, but knowing that it's going to take some time for the offense to kind of gel. Man, that defense is scary good. So many talented players at every level. And I can't wait to see some of those guys on the field, man. Simmons is I think he's going to be one of the best players in the country. If he's not already, I think he's going to prove that early in the season, and can't wait to see him flying around on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm usually like an offensive guy. Like that's what I'm excited about, like watching the offense and just seeing the big plays and big playability and all that type. I cannot wait to see this defense because I think they've just got, we talked about Alabama and we talked about the Georgia teams that got over that Alabama hump, how they were just so loaded 1 through 3. I think defensively, this team looks a lot like that. Like they have guys that can just step in positions and you aren't going to see a lot of fall off from the first string to the second string. And that's the difference in college football. Ultimately, we've all got all these bodies and I've just got better bodies from top to bottom than you do. And you can't keep up with that. You can't play your second string because he's not good enough, but you can't play your first string the whole game because I'm just going to throw 2 or 3 guys at him. And then by the time it's the fourth quarter, he's done. And then we really just pour it on. And I think defensively, that's what this Texas team should be able to do this year. By the time we get late into games, they should just be absolutely overwhelming opposing offenses. It should get, we should not see situations where we lose leads or even give up a lot of points towards the end of games because I feel like they're that good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And, it's been a couple years coming now. I think the first time I looked at a Texas defense and said, wow, that looks like an SEC football team was in 2023 when we played Bama in Tuscaloosa. And our defense was just kind of flying all over the field and they looked faster than the Alabama team. And, I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year and just a suffocating defense that's all over the place and really making differences for the team and putting our offense in a great spot right throughout the season and throughout a given game. Yep.
Yeah, I think the offense will have the luxury of not having to be the side of the ball that has to get the wins. They should really feel no pressure going into any of these games because of what I think that defense is going to be able to do. We've talked a lot about the talent. What I feel like this is crazy. I've never really paid attention to this stuff before, but I'm paying attention to it now. Just the amount of awards that Texas Longhorns are nominated for so far. You've got 4 on the Lombardi Award: DJ Campbell, Jack Indries, Anthony Hill Jr., Colin Simmons. Those 4 guys. Manning is on the Davy O'Brien Award watch list. Indries is on the Bolitnikoff Award watch list, which is for wide receivers. I didn't know tight ends could be on that, but apparently they can. Baxter and Wisner on the Doak Walker Award watch list. And I had a guy on the show. Who was it? I was talking to Zay Collier from Texas Sports Unfiltered, and he told me Wisner's winning the Doak Walker Award this year. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. 3 guys on the Walter Camp Player of the Year. Our kicker is on there, is up for the Lou Groza Award. The punter is up for the Ray Guy. I mean, it's just like list goes on and on and on. And I know early in the season, those are big lists. Like they're taking 50 to 100 guys, depending on which award you're talking about. But just to be in that thought process for all of those major type awards, that means you've got a lot of good players on your team. And so, back to the original, are we number one? I don't know. There's not a solid argument for anybody else. And other teams could say that too. Like an Ohio State fan could say, hey, if we were ranked number 1, there's not a solid argument for anybody else to be ranked ahead of us. And I would agree with that. So we're going to find out really quick. And I think that's one of the unique things about this season for college football. There's a lot of really big games right off the jump. You got Texas and Ohio State. You've got Clemson and LSU. And LSU's a team that, again, I'm not seeing it, but I know they're talented, but it's just they've been LSU for the last 2 or 3 years. And so it's hard for me to go, this is the group that gets over that and doesn't lose 2, 3, 4 games. But they've got a big one with Clemson, and a lot of people are really high on Clemson, and I think they should be because I think they're one of the only teams coming into this season that has their guy coming back at quarterback, and he's a really
I agree with you, Sean. I just think there are so many great games at the beginning of the season that are really going to show us, right, who those top-tier teams are.
Yeah, I mean, at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, August 30th, you're going to know if Ohio State should be the number one team in the country or if Texas should be the number one team in the country. You're going to know right off the bat, because I think whoever wins that game, whoever it is, if it's Ohio State, if they manage to win that game, they're going to jump Penn State.
Oh yeah,
because I don't even know who Penn State's playing. And
I'm guessing it's nobody
good
in week one. I'm right there with you. Yeah, whoever wins that game is going to be a solid number one.
Yeah, and I think
first half of the
I
season.
think that's deserved, I believe. I mean, I think again, who else? Who else are you gonna? How else do you decide who the number one team is? You put two top three teams in the same place and let them play and see who gets it done. So but yeah, it'll be interesting on the offensive side of the ball how quickly that offensive line can gel. It's very talented. We all know that. Super talented. In fact, I think, to me, it's more talented than they've had under Steve Sarkisian, and that's just simply recruiting and development over time. So I think the bodies individually in a vacuum are better than the 5 bodies we had last year. It'll be a matter of how quickly do they come together and gel, and then can they stay healthy? Because again, you look at this depth chart, it's kind of scary looking. You've got your guys up front. You got Gooseby, who's going to be the left tackle. I think Neto Umeozulu will be the left guard. Cole Hudson will probably hold down center, and he's your old man. You got DJ Campbell, another old man, holding down right guard. And then Brandon Baker, sophomore, I think, will probably win that right tackle position now that Andre Cajo is out for the season. But then you've got guys like Nate Kibble, and he is a redshirt freshman. You got Connor Robertson, who's a redshirt junior and a guy that just hasn't got to play a lot at Texas. Jaden Chatham is a redshirt sophomore. And then you got, Daniel Cruz in the middle. He's a redshirt freshman. Christian Jackson's a true freshman. Connor Stroh, redshirt sophomore. Robert Sweeney, redshirt sophomore. So there's not a lot of experience anywhere really past that first couple of guys, and really the middle right there of the offensive line on the starting group. And then everybody else is kind of babies. So you lose a body, could be interesting. And I'll caveat that with, I'm pretty sure Ohio State lost a lot of guys off their offensive line at certain points last season. I don't know. I don't think they all came back for the playoffs. I think there were some guys that were just out, and they still managed to field like a pretty damn good offensive line. So I think it goes back to all college football fans kind of adjusting what their expectations are of what a team should look like. And because to me, it's like more like the NFL now. In the NFL, you got to cut down to 55 guys before the season starts, right? And those are your 55 guys. And that means you don't have a lot of depth, and you figure it out. Guys have to play in weird positions, especially along the offensive line, just because you get guys busted up. So I will certainly pray that offensive line can remain at least intact, because I think that's the best shot for that offense to come along. Because if you can't protect Arch and you can't run the ball, that's just not a good combination. And I should say, if you can't run the ball, then you've got problems, because then Arch feels like he's got to be the guy that takes over and does everything. Quarterbacks start pressing, and it sometimes it works, but most of the time it's bad news when you get in that situation and you can't run the ball. So I think the first thing I'm looking for in Columbus is, can that offensive line get some push up front? Can they even have like a semblance of a running game against a powerful opponent like Ohio State, which they just absolutely did not have last year?
Yeah, I agree with that. And Sean, I'm also curious to kind of hear your thoughts about the wide receiver group, right? We've obviously got some talented guys at the top there with Wingo and Moore. But, looking at the depth chart, it feels a little thin and unproven at wide receiver as well, right? There's two guys that have really contributed here at Texas. We have the transfer from Stanford that came over that I've heard good things about. And then we've got Parker Livingston, right, who I think everybody is very curious to see, like in live action. But once you get past that, right, really, really young guys, a lot of true freshmen, guys that are going to be playing in their first game in Columbus. So it'll be interesting to see how that group comes together as well. I feel like we've been really spoiled at wide receiver for the last couple of years, and I'm hoping that this batch of guys is going to be able to hold up to that standard and give Manning the targets that he needs outside.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that, like, really, besides, it's funny because going into spring, that running back room was my biggest concern. I think for me, they're like the biggest strength of the offense now. At least when you talk about depth. Because everybody thinks Arch Manning is going to go do great things, and maybe he does, but nobody really knows at this point. He's never had to carry the load by himself and be the guy. And so it'll be interesting to see how he reacts. I mean, I personally feel like he's very talented. Mentally, I don't think you can be any better than Arch Manning probably is at this point in his career. The key is really going to be that offensive line. Can they protect him and get the team in a situation where he doesn't have to do it by himself? But yeah, back to that wide receiver group. I think Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore is a guy that if you like kind of extrapolate, really him and Ryan Wingo, if you kind of extrapolate their seasons last year into the number of catches that like a Jeremiah Smith got, the number of targets, they have really big years too. So I think those are two guys that can get loose, make big plays down the field for you. We've seen DeAndre Moore get down the field. We've seen Ryan Wingo be really physical and really versatile in the receiving game. I've also heard a lot of really good things about Emmett Mosley out of Stanford. And then Parker Livingstone's a guy that I said, to me, he's my dark horse offensively. I mean, I think just based off of what I've heard at a fall camp, to me, he's a guy that's going to step on the scene and kind of just immediately be, maybe not the star of that wide receiver group, but a guy that Arch Manning can depend on. He gets open, he makes plays, things like that. And then after that, it's all these freshmen. And there's a redshirt sophomore, Ryan Niblets, in that mix. Red Anderson's a guy that's on the depth chart, but he's a walk-on player. So yeah, you've got 6 guys in that 40 for the wide receivers that have never played a snap. So that's the majority of your wide receivers.
Absolutely. And it's going to be fun to see some of the young guys, right? I know you're going to see a freshman or two that probably step up and pop, right? So I'm excited to see that. Man, if we can keep Wingo and DeAndre Moore healthy, that's going to be, I think, a group that can really, kind of grow as the season goes and be full of big time weapons for Arch. So excited to see them play for sure.
Yeah, I don't think top to bottom, like the first 3 levels of that depth chart from a wide receiver perspective, I don't know that we've ever seen the amount of talent. I mean, you got Jamie French, Khalil Lockett that are both 5-star guys. Michael Terry is an athlete, but he was a 5-star and the number 1 athlete in the country. He's a guy that can play all over the field. I think probably he's penciled in at a wide receiver spot at this point. But I think he's going to be a guy that's going to play. I mean, I don't know if we see him in Columbus. I don't know how much we see of French or Lockett in Columbus. And then another guy is Dalen McCutcheon that's been having a good fall camp. I mean, I think those guys will be in those 3 games we just talked about after that Ohio State game, where you start to see Sark and company kind of go to work with the chess pieces and see what they've got and see what this team can really do well offensively. Ohio State to me is just get in there, figure out a way to win that game and get the hell out. And maybe even get in there, don't get blown out and don't get injured to death and get out. Like, we want to win that game, obviously. If Texas was to lose that game 20-17, at the end of the season, provided they go on and have a good rest of the season and do well in the SEC, nobody's holding them out of the playoff for losing on the road in Columbus first week. Obviously, you want to win. We all get that. But I mean, I don't know how much like toying with the offense we're going to see. And I don't know how wide open the offense we're going to see. That's kind of like an interesting subplot to me. Does Sark go in there and just cut it loose with Arch because he feels that confident in Arch? And I think he does feel really, really confident with Arch. Or do we see like a team, maybe like those older Alabama and Georgia teams, and even some of those LSU teams that just pounded the rock, even if they weren't getting anything? They just pounded the rock, punt the ball, played defense. And then eventually you've got too much firepower on your side of the offense to not make a big play. And that's kind of how you saw some of those games go down in the SEC back in the day before it got a little wide open offensively. It was like old school, like Arkansas and Texas and old school Oklahoma and Texas games where they're just banging heads and then someone pops one and you win like 14-7 or something.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think, it's a little bit different because it's the second week as opposed to week one. But, you look back at the last couple of years, Sark's play calling, in Tuscaloosa against Bama earlier in the
He
year.
opened it up.
And then even last year in Ann Arbor, right? They didn't play conservative. They were scoring points and going up and down the field. And I expect a lot of the same in Columbus.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think
you're
you're going
probably
to
right.
see either side, come out and be overly, cautious. I think you're going to see Sark take some shots and kind of. I'm hoping we get to see what Arch is made of from the get go. So that's going to
Yeah,
be
it's
so
going to
fun
be
to
fun.
watch. And man, that atmosphere is going to be incredible and just a really cool position to be in as a Texas football fan.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be short of the fact that I keep hearing I'm probably going to get beat up in Columbus. Short of the fact of that, I think it's going to be like a really fun atmosphere, a really cool place to go to. I've never been to the Shoe before, and that's always kind of been one of my bucket list places to go to. So hopefully, I think I've got tickets with the rest of the Texas fans. So I think just getting in and getting out, and probably more getting out, is going to be the challenge. And I may just sit in the seats until like 2 or 3 hours after the game is over to guarantee I don't get jumped. Yeah.
I have a really funny story. When we went 2005, 20 years ago, we sat 50-yard line, but at the upper deck, and we're in the Ohio State section. And what we had seen all weekend is it was really the students that were toxic and aggressive and trying to fight people. The older folks were really okay. But it's funny, after we win this game, win that game, we have a sweet old lady sitting next to us. It's me, my wife, another girl, and then two of my guy friends. She comes up to us. She's like, "Hey, congratulations. I'll tell you this right now. You're going to want to turn your shirts inside out or take them off because you will get beat up walking out of this stadium. You're going to have somebody take a swing at you." And we kind of looked at the lady. She was a sweet old lady, and we looked at her and we're like, if you turn an orange shirt inside out, it's still orange. So that's not really going to help us much.
And she was trying to do right by you.
Yeah, luckily we got out of there alive, but we walked back to the sports bar that everybody was pre-gaming at. And there was a Texas fan that had driven their minivan from Texas with Texas plates parked right in the front. We walked up to the sports bar. There's a folding metal chair right through the front windshield.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there was some crazy stuff happening 20 years ago. It was a wild day.
Yeah, so I'm low key a little bit. I wouldn't say worried. Like it's on my mind. It's like a thing I'm trying to mentally prepare. Like I'm mentally preparing for when someone says something to me. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I try to? Because man, I'm too old to be fighting all the time. It's not that I can't probably beat some people up. I'm just too old for that shit anymore. And I really don't want to spend the weekend in an Ohio jail, to be perfectly honest with you. So how do I de-escalate this situation is kind of on the forefront of my mind. And the problem is my wife, she can be kind of aggressive. Like if she sees me getting like picked on and stuff, she's gonna like start running her mouth and make the situation worse. That's my biggest word. So how do I muzzle the woman is I think the key. And I think like going into areas and just being like, listen, you don't touch me, I won't touch you. Don't put your hands in my face. I won't put your hand. Let's just enjoy the game. Like right off the bat, just set the expectations that I might kill you if you do the wrong thing to me. Maybe that works. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see.
Well, best of luck, man.
Yeah, man. What I'm gonna do is just drink a lot of beer and pretend like I don't know, because ignorance is bliss. That's how you get away from all that stuff. You just go with it. I wonder about this game. Something that I don't think a lot of people have talked enough about is Kelly no longer being the offensive coordinator there at Ohio State. I wonder how much that impacts that Ohio State offense, because they were really good last year. Our defense did a great job against them in that Cotton Bowl outside of one play. But But Kelly, I feel like that was like the missing piece for Day. I think he went out and said, hey, man, let's pay this guy. Let's get him to come, and maybe we get lucky and we can have him for 2 or 3 years. But definitely we get him this year. And I think he's the type of guy that can go get us a national championship from an offensive perspective. That's exactly what happened. I wonder how big of a setback that could be for this Ohio State offense.
I think it's going to affect them quite a bit, and they are replacing coordinators on both sides of the ball, so that makes it even more tricky for them. And you take their top wide receiver out of the equation, man. They lost so many weapons on that offense, right? And I was watching SportsCenter earlier tonight. I think I heard him say that Julian Sands only attempted 5 passes at Ohio State or some crazy number like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they're going to be able to put things together in Columbus. And one thing that makes me nervous, Sean, is I remember going last year into Ann Arbor, right? Michigan was kind of going through similar things. And, we were able to prove in that game that we were by far the better team. And I'm hoping we don't go into the Michigan game, expecting that same type of scenario, because I feel like Ohio State is going to be able to kind of plug those gaps better than Michigan did coming off of their title run. And I think you're going to see a more formidable opponent with Ohio State. So hopefully we're not overlooking anything, which I'm sure we won't, because we're replacing a lot as well. But I just hope that we don't go in a little bit overconfident. Based off
I think confidence is good, but I think prepared is the key. Like, it's good to be confident, but if you forego preparation because you're confident, I think that's where you get yourself into trouble in football. And I feel like I've seen enough from Steve Sarkisian and the staff and the culture that they've built there. Now that we've seen it with multiple sets of players, it's real. It's like, it wasn't a fluke that one year anymore. Like that's what Texas football is going to do. They're going to be prepared. They're going to show up. They're going to play hard. All those things that you got to do to win football games. It'll work most of the time. Sometimes it won't. We saw that last year. I mean, shit happens, but I think the key is that culture and everybody buying in. So I don't think we'll see a letdown. I think if something crazy were to happen in that game where, it just doesn't work out, it's going to be because of some physical thing, probably that happens that we just didn't win a battle or something. So, but yeah, it'll be. Let me ask you this: I've talked to a lot of people about this, and this has kind of been a topic that Texas fans have probably gone back and forth at each other on message boards and Twitter and stuff like that. There's a lot of thought that maybe Steve Sarkisian, now that he's a head coach, ought to give up the play calling and ought to bring in his own offensive coordinator. And the only reason I ask is we saw it work for Ryan Day last year. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you even have any thoughts, or do you think it's even worth thinking about?
I really don't. I think you stick with what they've been doing, right? And I feel like it's been working. And Sarkisian's got a brilliant offensive mind. So
yeah, he does.
I really feel like he's shown that he's going to do what he feels like is best for the program. And if he thinks, being the play caller is what's best, then I'm completely down with him continuing to do that.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, and going back to the previous point we were making, right? Not only should we not have a letdown, but I think the great motivator is going to be that we just lost to them, right?
Yeah.
And they knocked us out of the national championship run. So if anything, I want to see a pissed off and motivated Texas team. So
yeah, and I think you will. I think you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be exciting. It is coming up fast. We will actually be there, which you should know this by now if you're listening, because I just talked about getting beat up for like 5 or 10 minutes. So yeah, we'll be up there. I'm looking forward to it for a lot of reasons. Just the same way I was looking forward to going to Michigan. Not only did we all think it was going to be a big game, but it's a historic, football facility as far as college football goes. So we're excited to go check that out. Let's talk about. I saw you on Twitter say. I saw a graphic on Twitter the other day that said you can pick any quarterback to come back to your team. And it had like Vince Young. It had Tim Tebow. I can't remember the other 2 guys that were on there.
Cam Newton. And Joe Burrow.
Yeah. That's right. And so the question was kind of, you can take these guys to come back. and which one would you pick? And you chime in and say, oh, I want Arch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that for a minute. And I think I get your reasoning. I saw some of your follow-on tweets and stuff, but to me, I'm a known commodity guy. I'm rolling with Vince Young in that situation. If I can resurrect 2005 Vince Young, that guy's going to be my quarterback.
See, I'm probably going to say some stuff here, and you're never going to invite me back to talk about Texas football. But you've also seen me say on Twitter that I am in the minority of people who are so damn sick of hearing about that national championship football team. It's time for us to turn the page
I hear you.
and win another one, man. And I saw Vince Young. He was fantastic. Best Texas football player I've ever seen. But we've seen that movie, man. And
You ready to see
the
a
other end
different
of the
movie?
spectrum, we've heard so much hype and so much discussion about Arch Manning. I was actually pissed off last year because I felt like people were disrespectful to Quinn, right? Just saying, "Oh, Arch is better. Arch should be playing. If Arch would have been our quarterback, we would have won the national championship." Well, you know what? Get your ass on the field and prove it to me. I
Yeah,
want to
it's
see
time.
it, right?
Yeah.
I keep hearing people say that he can be so damn good, and I just want to see it with my own eyes, man. And just playing devil's advocate, right? Like, what if he ends up being another Manning like Peyton and Eli,
Yeah.
man? I want to see that. And I want to see that on the field, and I'm hoping we get 2 years of that. And man, I just think the electricity that he's going to bring to the program this season is going to be pretty wild. So I'm
Yeah, there's
looking
no
forward
doubt.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, every time Arch Manning stepped on the field last year, the place went nuts. And I don't think people necessarily meant that as a disrespect to Quinn. I know exactly what you're talking about because I saw a lot of the same stuff where people were like verbalizing, I think Arch Manning is better. He should be the
Yes.
one starting right now. And I think there's a debate to be had about that, but I understand why Steve Sarkisian rolled with Quinn. I think he thought Quinn was gave us a better opportunity to win more games. And I think that's true because Arch is still Arch. He's still young and he doesn't have a ton of experience. I think what we'll see is Arch Manning, by the time he leaves Texas, will be, and I don't want to use the word infinitely, noticeably better quarterback than Quinn Ewers was at Texas. I think that's what we'll see. I think we'll see a guy that barring anything crazy, I think we'll see a guy that just is on a different level from a playmaking perspective than Quinn Ewers was. And just physically, he's just a different guy. He's much bigger. He's a lot faster. He's just a more physical guy. He's got a better arm. I mean, there's really not a category physically that Arch Manning doesn't have an advantage over Quinn Ewers, even when Quinn Ewers was 100% healthy. So already off the bat, you're talking about a guy that's just, hey man, he's just physically better, and there's always going to be somebody physically better. So yeah, I do think he's going to bring a lot of energy to that offense, and it's really going to just ultimately, after the first few snaps though, and all that goes away, it's going to boil down to that offensive line and can they protect? Can they get some running game going? So that's what I'm interested to see. I think Arch will be Arch that everybody thinks he'll be at some point in his career. It'll just be a matter of how fast that is for Texas and to see the success that I think we can have with an Arch Manning. I'm still choosing Vince Young though. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
but I'm still.
I feel you.
But I get what I do understand your point, and I think that's fair. Real quick before we get out of here, let's talk about this crazy ass story out of Oklahoma with John Mateer. So this kid, and I think I could be wrong, but I think that it's well, I know now because he released a statement basically saying, "Oh, these were inside jokes." But this kid sent money to people and put sports gambling, and in parentheses, the names of the teams he was betting on.
Which makes zero sense. I mean, whether it was a joke or whether it was real, he is a complete idiot either way, right? It's
Make
like
up the inside joke on that. Tell me the story behind the inside joke is what I want to know. What is sports gambling and specific teams? How is that an inside joke?
exactly, and it's like that is going to come back and bite you at some point. So neither explanation makes a lick of sense to me. I could see how a normal college kid, right, would send some money via Venmo and put some smart ass caption or fake caption of what it's for. But you
Yeah,
would think the last person that would do that is a college athlete, right?
yeah,
Knowing that that's one of the few things you can get in trouble for
yeah,
in this day and age. So doesn't make
yeah.
any sense, and it was a pretty funny story. Yeah,
It's a real funny story, and I think aside from the fact that it's illegal or it's an NCAA infraction,
yeah.
and aside from the fact that he's a Sooner, the most intriguing part of the story is the fact that he wrote sports gambling on a Venmo. And this brings up a question that I've put it on Twitter a couple times, and apparently people don't care or they don't know what I'm asking. I don't know. Nobody's responded to it. Why is there a social media feature in a financial application? What is the use case for anyone to know why I sent Marc Pena $10? Like, what is that? Why is that even a thing?
I don't know, man. It's a very valid question. I saw your tweet last night. I think it is valid. First of all, I don't know why people would go swiping through that and
Yeah.
read any of the comments or the back and forth, but I will say, Sean, that there's been a time or two where I have scrolled and seen something, and this was like in the early days of me using Venmo, and it really did make me realize that you can use it for almost anything, right? And I think maybe that's part of the reason. Uh, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Back in the day, that was part of the reason why I downloaded Venmo. We were out at a bar and I didn't have any cash on me and I needed to leave quickly. And I was like, hey, I'll hit you back. I'll pay you back next time I see you. My buddy's like, oh, just Venmo me. Maybe something like that. Like the more visibility of different things that you can pay for, who knows? But I feel like your question is definitely valid. I don't
Well, and I
know.
think you should be able to see that. Like, I think you should be
Yeah,
able to go back into your account and see, oh, I sent Jake, $15 to cover my bar tab that night. That makes
yeah.
I know what that $15 is for. I think Jake should be able to see, oh yeah, Marc paid me, and this is what it
Yeah.
was. I remember that now. But like, there's no reason for Bob 4 states away to be able to
To be
search
scrolling through
your
your
account
your
and
feed.
scroll through and
Yeah,
see what you spent $1 on. Like, it makes no sense to me. And
yeah.
that, to me, that's 1B or yeah, 1B of the intrigue of this story is why the fuck is that even a thing where anybody can look on my Venmo and see what I'm sending my son money for or whatever, or whatever the case is. It just makes like no sense to me. I've actually put like maybe 10 or 15 minutes of thought into this to try to figure out why that's even a thing. So yeah, man, that is a crazy story. I don't think anything will come of it because I don't think, man, unless the guy he sent it to is like a known bookie and they can track all that down, and which they probably can, but I don't think they will. I think this will be a non-story by the time they kick the football off next Saturday. I don't think anybody's
I
talking about.
didn't I read that the guy I sent it to was a teammate of his on Washington State?
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was like an offensive lineman on his team or something like that.
Well, and then that makes it even. That makes it where it could just be like, man, I bet you 20. You're walking off the practice field and someone says, man, USC is going to beat UCLA this weekend. No, I'll bet you
Yeah.
$20 they don't. But again, why would you put sports
Sports gambling.
gambling on there? Oh my God. It's crazy. He was a kid when he did that. And man, I think I've told you on this show, like when we do the baseball show, like I should be dead. I did
Oh,
so
me
many
too.
stupid things when I was that age. It's a miracle that I'm even sitting here right now alive. And so I can't fault the kid. It's probably much ado about nothing, but it is kind of fun to mess with the Sooners because any chance they get to jab at us, they will 100% do that. So yeah, I might flame that up a little bit some more, but I really do think from an investigation and anything actually happening perspective, it's a non-event. Nothing's going to
Yeah.
come out of it.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think anything will come of it, and people aren't going to like me saying this, but I just think that there's a ton of college athletes that are probably gambling,
Oh
and
yeah.
if they do it within reason, I don't see it why it's a big deal if they're not betting on their own team.
Yeah.
But again, I think now, right? If you look at how much money these college athletes have now, some of them are wasting it in a
Oh
casino
yeah.
and betting on sports. That's happening. So,
Oh, I know
uh,
100% it's happening. So, but it is interesting. Some of these media talking heads that have kind of stepped up, on the Twitter space and like went out of their way to defend it. And I say defend it if he was truly gambling on college sports while he was a college athlete, like that's a serious infraction. And these guys are like, oh, we're just gonna worry about that, even though we're paying them all the. I mean, like, come on, dude. Like, Klatt said it, and I'm like, this is the worst take you have ever had, Klatt. Like ever. Like
yeah,
this is worse than the time. Like I don't even like it. It was. It's just that dumb. Uh, Two wrongs don't make a right, Klatt. Come on,
yeah,
man. Like
yeah,
just because other people are cheating doesn't mean it's okay to cheat or break the rules rather. So yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's a funny story. I think again in 2 weeks we're past it and nobody's really talking about it. Somebody will bring it up on Twitter in like a year. When one of our players gets busted for something and all the Sooners get on us, someone will go back and bring up the Mateer stuff. I think the other funny thing is like some of the memes that have come out of it. Like I saw one with Brian Bosworth that said Brian Bosworth pays OU doctors
Zero.
steroids,
I
cocaine.
saw that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
a couple guys were quick with some Arch Manning ones as
yeah,
well that I
yeah.
saw that
Butt
were
stuff and
obviously
all that.
fake, but a couple of them were kind
Yeah.
of funny. So
Yeah. It's
creative folks out there for sure.
there's some funny shit talkers on Twitter for sure. If you can wade through the mush, there's actually some funny stuff on there every once in a while. Well, Mark, man, I appreciate you joining us tonight, man. We had an absolute blast. We'll definitely have you back on. I know you're the baseball guy, but I also know that you get down on some football too. So yeah, we'll definitely have you back. You guys make sure you check out Mark at Occupy Left Field. Check us out at Horn Takes. Folks, thanks for watching tonight. You guys have a good one. We're one Saturday away from college football. It's barely, but there will be college football 2 Saturdays from now. You got to be excited about that. You guys have a good one. Y'all get hooked.
Welcome.